Hello, my name is Kirsten and welcome back to my channel. I talk about all things branding, social media, and email marketing for small business owners. Last week, I talked about how to create a content planner and how to set yourself up for success by creating a bunch of content in one day and then planning it out over the course of a month, 2 months, a couple weeks, however long that you need. I had someone reach out on the last video. Her name is Brittany, and she asked if I could do a more in-depth video on how I personally create my content, how I create photos, how I create graphics, how I create reels and TikToks. So I thought, what better way to do that than to create that for this week's video. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I set up my house, how I set up my space to take photos for my social media profiles. I'm going to walk you through how I create my graphics and how I kind of plan that out. I'm going to show you what content I've created for this week. And of course, I'm going to show you how I plan out my video content because TikToks and Reels are all the rage right now, and incorporating that into my weekly plan or my content schedule is super important. So without further ado, let's dive in. This week, I am taking you with me as I plan out my content for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to show you how I create my photos, how I create my graphics, and how I create my Reels and my TikToks. A whole other video will have to be made on how I create my YouTube videos because that's just too much. But for the most part, I'm going to show you how I create about 90% of my content for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. This video is going to help you take all of your ideas from ideation to content creation, and then of course to execution and making sure that the content we are creating is actually being pushed out and shared with our audience. The very first thing that I want you to do is go ahead and look at your content planner that you created from last week's video. Or if you did not watch last week's video, I highly recommend you go back and watch that first because it builds the foundation for what I'm going to be talking about today. Your time, your energy, it's valuable. And we want to make sure that when you are headed into a content creation day, you are optimizing your time to ensure that when you come out of that day, you have a ton of content that you get to work with. There is nothing more frustrating than spending a full day creating content and only coming out of it with one photo or one graphic to share. When you are looking at your content planner, I want you to make a list of all of the photos, graphics, and video content that you need to create. It is this list that we are going to work on and focus on for our content creation day so that we can make sure that we are hitting all of those different content pieces that you want to create. The first piece of content we are going to focus on are photos because they take the most amount of time and generally the most amount of planning. They are also the piece of content that most people shy away from because they either don't have a photographer that can help them or they don't have a good enough camera. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter if you have a professional camera or your phone, you are able to create content either way. There are just a couple tweaks you need to make in between. When it comes time to plan your mini photo shoot, the first thing you need to do is plan. As I mentioned before, your time and energy are precious. So spending that time and energy to create one piece of content just isn't optimal. We want to make sure that we are planning in advance to make the best use of your time and at the end of the day, walk away with enough content to cover you for a couple of weeks or even a month. Today, I am recording this YouTube video, but yesterday was actually my content planning day. So I pre-recorded myself taking my photos, which was actually quite difficult and something very out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to share that with you here so that you can see what that process looks like. Yesterday, I spent about 2.5 hours creating content and I walked away with 11 photos that I can use over the next couple of weeks. This video was actually inspired by my friend Haley May, who a couple weeks ago shared a video all about content creation and how to plan out your own content exactly like this. So I'm going to link her video down below in the description. Please make sure you check it out. She is an incredible content creator and actually photography is her full-time business. I'm going to give you a 6-step process that I take when it comes time to planning, creating, and I guess executing on my photo content. This 6-step process is going to help you ensure that you plan everything in advance so that when it comes time to creating that content, you feel at ease and honestly less frustrated because content creation is frustrating and it can be difficult and it can be stressful. And I'm telling you right now, I'm creating this YouTube video and I am having a very difficult time. There are so many different distractions happening today. That's just content creation. That's just what happens, and you kind of have to go with the flow, go with the punches, and planning in advance kind of helps for that and makes you feel a little bit more at ease. The very first thing that you are going to do is get inspired. You are going to create yourself a mood board or gather a bunch of images, whether it's from Pinterest or from the internet, to make a list of all of the different shots that you want to take. This doesn't just work for creating photos of yourself, but it also works for creating product photography as well. You want to make sure that you are taking all of your inspiration and all of these ideas that you have and compiling them into one area where you can see everything very crystal clear. I'm going to show you obviously here an outline of how I prepped my mood board for yesterday's content creation day. The second thing you are going to do is make a list of all of the locations, outfits, and props that you may need for your content creation day. For me, I had all of the props on hand. I used my laptop, I used a mug, I used my phone, a notebook, some pencils. I also just used some clothes that I had in my closet. I wanted some business casual shots. I wanted some other casual shots of me, what I typically look like on a day-to-day basis in a crew neck and either sweatpants or jeans. I wanted to make sure that I had enough options, but in order to prepare in advance, I made a list of all of these things that I needed so that instead of stressing myself out yesterday, I had everything laid out and ready to go. If you are doing product photography, a lot of times you might need to purchase props external to things that you have at your house or at the studio you're working in. So make sure you make a list and then go out and get those props before your content creation day so that you have everything on hand. The next thing you're going to do, and step number 3, is take the photos. I highly recommend that you get a tripod. There are different tripods, whether you have a professional camera or a phone. I have one for both, and you're going to set up your camera and start taking the photos. My biggest recommendation is to check the photos while you are taking them because it makes sure that you are getting the photos that you actually want to get. The worst thing that could happen is you don't look and then you get home, check out all the photos, and you don't have any of the photos that you wanted, or they didn't turn out the way that you wanted. So just make sure that you are taking the time during your content creation day to look at the content you are getting and making sure it's exactly what you wanted. After you've gone to all of your different locations, you've put on all of your different outfits, used all of your props, taken all of your product photos, it's now time to go home and upload your photos to your computer. Obviously, throughout your day, you've checked out the photos, you're happy with how they look, but now you want to see them bigger. Once they're uploaded on your computer, you want to sift through, take a look at all the shots that you took, and then you're going to pick the ones that really stand out and the ones that really represent that piece of content you are trying to share. Once you've selected the handful of photos you are happy with, it's now time to edit them. For me, I like to use Lightroom to edit my photos because I like to create my own presets and it makes sure everything looks the same. If you do not like Lightroom or you haven't used it before, I highly recommend the app VSCO for your phone. It does almost the same job, it has its own presets, and it's also a viable option. Sometimes I'll take a photo and I'll notice that there's some things that I might want to tweak in the background. I might want to remove a plug from the wall. I might want to remove some shadows. Maybe my hair is a little bit out of place. If that's the case, I will go into Photoshop and I will remove some of those items just to make sure that the photo looks exactly how I wanted it. Once you've got your photo edited and ready to go, you can then put it in your content planner as a placeholder. At this time, I like to also write my caption. Generally, once I've looked at the photo enough, I have a really strong idea of what I want to say. I've also used my content planner, so I already had this piece of content planned. I already knew what I was going to talk about in the caption, and now I'm just going to write it. I'm going to put this out there because I have a feeling that once you spend your first day creating content, you might leave it a little bit frustrated. I say this because I have been there. If you are spending a day creating content and things just aren't working out for you, that's okay. It happens to all of us. Try again the next day, pick another day to do it, find a day where maybe it's a little bit nicer outside, or maybe you're having a better hair day, and create the content then. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, because the more pressure you do put on yourself, then the worse the content generally comes out. The next thing I want to focus on is graphics, because graphics are something that I personally use a lot in my content. My Instagram account is very informative, it's very infographic based, so every other post is a graphic. Planning out these graphics is almost as important as it is to plan out my photo shoots. When I am about to create my graphics, I go ahead and I look at the list of all of the different graphics that I need to create. I personally like to use Canva because it is a user-friendly Photoshop alternative that you can use. It's also more affordable. So what I do is I create templates in Canva, and then when I go to create my content, I just make a copy of those templates and input the information that I need to. If I am creating something that is maybe a little more design oriented, yes, I will go in and I will use Photoshop or Illustrator, but 98% of my content is created through Canva. I have linked Canva down below. I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. It's how I create all of the graphics in my YouTube videos. It's how I create my story graphics. It's how I create all of the graphics on all of my social media profiles. Whenever I work with any of my clients, we spend the first part of us working together creating a strategy and then working on creating graphic templates that we can use moving forward. Once I have an approval on the social media graphics that they want to use, I am left with the creative freedom to use those graphics however I need. This works for my clients, it works for me, and it's something I highly recommend you do. I also offer 25 Instagram templates through Canva. You can find those on my website or in the description below. So make sure you check those out. It might save you some time and might give you the opportunity to use some of the graphics that I've created in the past. I typically work on creating graphics for quotes. It might be testimonials, swipe series, blog posts, any events that might be coming up. When I work with my clients, we sit down and we figure out all of the different pieces of content that we will typically be sharing, and then we create a template or two for each of those things that we might share. That way there's a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more creative freedom for me to be able to create for them. I do the same for myself. If I'm creating a quote graphic template, I will typically create 2 to 3 variations of that quote graphic so that when I cycle through them in my feed, it always looks like a new piece of content. Once I've gone to my templates in Canva and I've started inputting some of the information in, I will export them, and then immediately I take that exported file and put it into my content calendar. Similarly to what I did with my photos, I go in and I create the caption for it so that everything is all laid out in one place. When it comes to TikToks and Reels, I will typically sit down and start planning out 3 to 5 different video concepts that I can create. A lot of times these video concepts are actually pulled from content I've created before, like blog posts. It could be clips from YouTube videos. It could be from captions I've created in the past. I'm all about repurposing content because that saves me time and it's still beneficial to people who are viewing my content like you. So I sit down, I plan out 3 to 5 different video concepts, and then I just batch them all in one sitting. Sometimes I'll change my shirt, sometimes I'll change my hair just to make it look like it happened on different days, but for the most part, they are all taken on the same day. Because you can't typically save videos in the content calendar that you're using, or if you're using the one that I've created, I can also link that down below in the description, then you can't really link the video in there. I'll typically add it to a Google Drive folder and then hyperlink the video in the content planner. I also make sure that I am including the caption there so that when it comes time to post, I don't have to do any thinking. I just attach the video and add the caption and hit post. There you have it. That is an overview of how I create photos, graphics, and TikToks and Reels for my personal content. It's also the same process I take with all of my clients, and I've been doing that for the past 3.5 years, so I know it works. I also work on creating hashtag buckets for each of the 5 pillars that each of my clients have. If you are not familiar with the 5 pillars of content concept, I highly recommend you go back and check out some of my other videos where I talk about it a lot. But essentially you pick 5 pillars of focus or 5 areas of focus that you want to talk about, and then you create content for those pillars. With creating the hashtag buckets, I generally pick 5 different buckets for each of those 5 pillars with a bunch of different hashtags in each of them. They never have the same hashtags within them. And then when I create that content and I post that content to social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I will pull hashtags from those hashtag buckets for those posts. It's important to note that on Instagram you can use up to 30 hashtags. I typically recommend people put them in the first comment, not in the caption themselves, but creating these hashtag buckets ahead of time actually saves me more time, and I don't have to sit there trying to type in all of the different hashtags that I want to use on that post. If you are using this strategy, every single month you need to go through and make sure you are freshening up those hashtags. Sometimes you'll notice that hashtags in your hashtag bucket have been banned, so we like to interchange them with some of the other hashtags. After all of the content has been created, I will either schedule it in a scheduling platform like Buffer, or I will go in on the individual social media platforms, create the post, and save them as a draft. Having this all in there and ready to go makes it so that I don't have to think about creating content throughout the week when I'm working on other stuff for my business, and that other stuff being client work. For you in your business, this might look like the actual operations, it might look like sales, it might look like making phone calls or updating your website. When you are doing those other important tasks for your business, you don't want to have to be thinking about, oh my gosh, I did not make a post, or oh my gosh, I haven't taken any photos. Plan ahead. Plan ahead, because it is going to save you so much time and so much energy in the long run. There you have it. That is exactly how I create content for myself and for my clients. Yes, it takes time, and typically this time is on a weekend, but spending 4 to 5 hours creating content, planning it, and putting it in a scheduler is so much more worth it than having to take time out of your busy day to make a post on Instagram or those other social media platforms you are using. In my day-to-day operations, when I'm working with my clients, we are all about posting with intention and posting with strategy. The last thing I want you to be doing is posting last minute or posting with no clear strategy, because it's wasting your time. It's not going to give you the return you want. It's not going to give you the results you want. So just do yourself a favor, plan in advance, make sure that content is so good people can't look away, and you will be golden. That is a wrap on this week's YouTube video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions about anything that I covered today, or maybe you feel like I missed something, please leave me a question down below in the comments section, or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I am always there. But thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next Tuesday.